I knew something was wrong when the letter came back with one word stamped across the front in red. Vacant. I had mailed it to my mother's house 3 days earlier. Not a greeting card. Not junk. A certified envelope containing the Spanish-language copy of her medical directive, the one my sister claimed had gone missing after Mom's hip surgery. My mother had lived in that same yellow duplex for 41 years. She was supposed to be home. When I called, my sister Celia did not sound surprised. "She's not there right now," she said. "Where is she?" A pause. Then a sigh, the kind people use when they have already decided you are the difficult one. Elias' mom can't live alone anymore. She doesn't understand what's happening half the time. 20 minutes later, I was standing in front of the yellow duplex, staring at a metal lockbox hanging from the doorknob and a real estate sign planted beside my mother's rosemary bushes. My name is Elias Navarro. I am 67 years old, and I spent 34 years interpreting other people's words in courtrooms, hospitals, and government offices. My sister thought retirement had made me slow. What she had forgotten was that I had built my entire life around noticing when one person was speaking for someone who had never agreed to be silent. Before I tell you what I found inside that house, subscribe. If you believe being old, injured, or quiet does not give anyone permission to erase you. The lockbox gleamed in the afternoon sun. The listing card in the plastic holder described the property as vacant, updated, and ready for investors. Vacant. My mother's blue ceramic bird still hung beside the porch light. Her lace curtain was gone from the front window. Through the glass, I could see a gray sofa I had never seen before, and 3 white pillows arranged like nobody was meant to touch them. I walked around the side gate. The padlock had been changed. "Elias," I turned. Mrs. Hanley from next door stood on her porch holding a watering wand. She had been my mother's neighbor for nearly 20 years. "Where's Mom?" I asked. Her eyebrows drew together. "Celia said Rosa moved to a care residence." "I assumed you knew." "When?" "2 weeks ago. Movers came on a Tuesday. Your mother kept asking why they were taking the dining table. That table had belonged to my grandfather. It was scarred from birthdays, domino games, Christmas tamales, and one memorable argument in 1998 when Celia threw a spoon hard enough to chip the sugar bowl. "Did Mom leave with them?" "No." Celia drove her away that morning. She came back with a man in a blue shirt. Then the furniture truck came. Mrs. Hanley lowered her voice. Rosa didn't look confused to me. She looked angry. I thanked her and returned to my car. Celia ignored my next 2 calls. On the 3rd, I left a message. "You have 10 minutes to tell me where Mom is." After that, I start calling every care facility in the county and every person whose name appears on that sign. She called back in 4. The place was called Meadow Glen Senior Living. It sat 12 miles away near a shopping center behind a row of decorative pear trees and a stone entrance meant to look more expensive than it was. Celia met me in the lobby. She was 61, 6 years younger than me, with the same dark eyes as our mother, and the same habit of pressing her lips together when she wanted to make impatience look like concern. She wore a cream blouse, black slacks, and the gold hoop earrings Mom had given her on her 50th birthday. "You cannot storm in here," she said. "I'm walking. You know what I mean." "No, Celia. I don't know much of anything right now." That seems to be the problem. She crossed her arms. Mom fell again. "When?" "Last month." "Why didn't you call me?" "Because you turn everything into a hearing." That was not entirely unfair. Years of interpreting sworn testimony had trained me to ask for dates, names, and exact words. My wife Laura used to tell me that I could make a grocery list sound like evidence. Laura had been gone 5 years. After she died, I let Celia take over more of Mom's appointments, because Celia lived 8 minutes from the duplex, and I lived nearly 40 minutes away. I told myself I was respecting the arrangement they had built. The truth was less noble. I was tired of being useful only in emergencies. I wanted for once to be the brother who brought dessert instead of questions. Celia had learned to depend on that silence. Did the fall break anything I asked? No. Was she admitted to a hospital? No. Who decided she needed residential care? Her doctor agreed it was safest. That wasn't my question. A woman behind the reception desk looked up. Celia stepped closer. She cannot manage the stairs. She forgets things. She left the stove on. Mom's unit is downstairs. She gets confused. Then let me speak to her. She's resting. It was 2 in the afternoon. My mother had not taken an afternoon nap since I was in middle school. I moved toward the hallway. Celia caught my forearm. Do not upset her. I looked at her hand until she removed it. A staff member named Tasha showed me to room 118. The room had a narrow bed, a vinyl recliner, and one framed print of a sailboat that looked as though it had been selected by someone who had never met the person living there. My mother sat beside the window wearing her green cardigan. Her hair had been cut, not trimmed, cut short above her ears. She hated short hair. Mijo, she said. Her face changed when she saw me. Relief first, then embarrassment. I crossed the room and kissed her forehead. Why didn't you tell me you moved? She glanced at Celia. Celia answered in English. She doesn't always remember the sequence. I pulled a chair in front of Mom and spoke in Spanish. Did you choose to come here? Mom's fingers tightened around the edge of her cardigan. They said the pipes at home were broken. I looked at Celia. She said, that's not what I told her. Mom continued. They said I would stay for a little while, until the repairs were finished. What repairs? I don't know. Celia took the papers. Celia gave a brittle laugh. This is exactly what I mean. She confuses conversations. Mom looked at me again. Why did they take Papa's table? The room became very small. I asked Mom whether she knew the month. She did. I asked who the president was, then stopped myself, because memory is not a trivia contest, and people can miss a fact without losing the right to direct their own lives. Instead, I asked what she had eaten for breakfast. Oatmeal with raisins. Too sweet. What did we play last Sunday? You cheated at dominoes. I never cheat. You count the tiles in your head. Celia interrupted. She has good moments. I reached into my jacket and took out my phone. I'm not recording, I said to both of them. I'm calling her doctor's office. Mom, do I have your permission to ask about the recommendation for this move? Yes, Celia's voice sharpened. You can't just do that. My mother turned toward her. He asked me. 3 words, softly spoken, completely clear. Celia's face did not change, but her right hand closed around her purse strap. That was the first moment I knew her plan depended on everyone accepting her version of my mother. It was also the first moment I understood that my mother was not the only person Celia had been managing. She had been managing me. The doctor's office would not discuss anything until my mother signed a fresh authorization. That was appropriate, and I said so. What bothered me was the receptionist's next sentence. We can arrange another English language form when she comes in. She prefers Spanish, I said. A pause. Her chart says she declined an interpreter. I looked at Mom. Did anyone offer you an interpreter at the clinic? No, Celia spoke from behind me. I interpret for her. The receptionist could hear her. Family members can assist, the woman said carefully, but we normally offer a qualified interpreter for consent discussions. Was one used when residential care was recommended? I can't answer that without authorization. Understood. Please note that Mrs. Navarro is requesting one now. I ended the call. Celia shook her head. You always do this. You make decent people feel accused. I asked what the chart says. You know exactly what you're doing. Yes, I said. For the first time in 2 weeks, I do. Mom wanted to leave with me that afternoon. I wanted to take her. I did not. That was my first consequential decision, and it was the hardest one because it felt like abandonment. I did not know what medical information Celia had withheld. I did not know whether Meadow Glen had received an order, whether Mom had medication changes, or whether walking her out without a discharge plan could place her at risk. Anger makes speed feel righteous. My career had taught me that speed without facts often helps the person who created the confusion. So I asked Tasha for the care coordinator. A woman named Priya Shah joined us in a small consultation room. She was a licensed social worker with a calm voice and a notebook that remained closed until Mom gave permission for the conversation. That detail mattered to me. Priya arranged a video interpreter on a tablet. Celia objected immediately. "This is unnecessary. My mother understands me." Priya did not argue. Mrs. Navarro requested language assistance. We provided. The interpreter introduced herself in Spanish and explained that she would interpret everything said without adding or changing meaning. I had spoken that same promise thousands of times. My mother's shoulders lowered. Priya asked whether Mom wanted Celia and me present. "Elias can stay," Mom said. "Celia should stay too. She needs to hear." Celia sat. According to Meadow Glen's admission file, my mother had entered for a 30-day respite stay after repeated household safety incidents and increasing disorientation. The paperwork listed Celia as agent under a durable power of attorney. It said the yellow duplex was undergoing urgent remediation and that the family planned to transition Mom into permanent memory care. "Who reported the safety incidents?" I asked. Priya looked to Mom first, not me. Mom nodded. Priya answered, "The intake notes attribute them to Ms. Navarro." "Which Ms. Navarro?" I asked. "Celia Navarro." My sister leaned forward. "Because I am the one who has been there. Elias visits on Sundays and imagines he knows everything." There was truth inside that accusation. I had visited most Sundays, sometimes Wednesdays. Celia handled groceries, transportation, and medication pickup after Mom's hip surgery 9 months earlier. I had thanked her for it. I had also reimbursed her whenever she said she had paid out of pocket. "What were the incidents?" I asked. Priya read from the notes. A burner left on. A front door left open overnight. 2 missed doses of blood pressure medication. A fall in the laundry room. An episode in which Mom allegedly became lost 4 blocks from home. Mom listened through the interpreter. Then she said the burner would not turn off. Celia's friend came to fix it. Celia looked at her. Mom continued, "The door was open because the repairman carried boxes through it. I did not miss pills. The pharmacy sent the wrong bottle and Celia took it away." "What about getting lost?" Priya asked. "I walked to St. Anne's. I have walked there for 30 years. It is 4 blocks away," I said. Mom lifted one shoulder. "Maybe 5 when your knees are bad." Even Priya smiled. Celia did not. "The fall happened," Celia said. "You cannot explain that away." Mom's expression softened. "I fell because you left laundry soap on the floor." I dropped a little. "You told them I was alone. You were alone when I found you. Because you went to get towels." Celia pushed back her chair. "This is ridiculous. She is editing the story because Elias is here." Priya finally opened her notebook. "Mrs. Navarro, do you feel safe returning home?" "Yes." "Do you understand that you may need help with transportation, medication, organization, and some household tasks?" "Yes, I am old. I am not surprised." "Do you understand that your home appears to be listed for sale?" Mom stared at her. The interpreter repeated the sentence. My mother turned to Celia. "What sale?" Celia's face lost color. She recovered quickly. "We discussed this." "No. You said the house was too much. I said the garden was too much. You said you wanted something easier. I said I wanted someone to cut the rosemary." The interpreter's voice remained neutral, but each sentence landed with the force of a gavel. Priya closed the folder. "Mrs. Navarro, did you authorize your daughter to list the property?" "No." Celia stood. "This meeting is over." Priya's tone stayed even. "You are free to leave. Mrs. Navarro is the resident." Celia looked at me. "You think you're protecting her. You have no idea what the last year has been like." "Then tell us." Not like this. She walked out. I spent another hour with Priya and Mom. We agreed on 3 immediate steps. Meadow Glen would not release Mom that day, but it would treat the placement as disputed rather than permanent. No further room change or long-term contract would be processed without speaking directly to Mom through an interpreter. Her medications would remain unchanged unless her physician confirmed the orders. Priya would help request the records used for admission. I asked Mom where her phone was. Celia said I lost it. I called the number. It rang inside Celia's purse in the hallway. She had not left. She was sitting in a chair outside the consultation room. When the ringtone sounded, she froze. I opened the door. She removed the phone and held it out. I found it in my car. Mom had been at Meadow Glen for 14 days. You found it just now, I asked. Celia looked past me toward the room. She calls people at night and gets agitated. Who? She called Mrs. Hanley 3 times. Mrs. Hanley had told me nothing about nighttime calls. Give me the phone. I'm her agent. Give Mom her phone. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then Priya stepped into the doorway. She did not threaten or raise her voice. Personal communication devices remain with residents unless there is a documented safety restriction, she said. Celia placed the phone in my hand. That was the second clue. The first was the missing interpreter. The second was not confusion medication or a fall. It was isolation. I charged Mom's phone beside her bed. There were 31 missed calls, but not to her. From her. Calls she had tried to make. My number appeared 11 times. None had reached me. I opened my own phone and checked. No missed calls, no blocked number. Then I looked at Mom's settings. My contact had been blocked on her device. So had Mrs. Hanley. So had Father Tom from St. Anne's. Celia said Mom had done it accidentally. Maybe one number could be an accident. 3 people who regularly spoke to her were a pattern. Before I left, Mom reached into the pocket of her cardigan and gave me a small brass key. To the sewing box, she whispered, "What's inside?" "Your father's papers and the little book." Celia was watching from the hallway. I closed my hand around the key. Our father had died 18 years earlier. He had kept every receipt, tax notice, insurance statement, and appliance manual in a cedar sewing box he inherited from his mother. After his death, Mom had used it for important documents. The little book was something else, a red pocket ledger. Mom had never trusted online banking. She wrote down every withdrawal, deposit check, and cash payment in neat columns, then compared the book with her monthly statement. Celia knew about it. From the way she stared at my fist, I could tell she did not know Mom still had the key. The next morning, I met the listing agent at the duplex. I did not pretend to be a buyer. I told him I was the owner's son and that the owner disputed the listing. His professional smile disappeared. He was named Jordan Lee, and to his credit, he stopped the scheduled showing before we entered. My agreement was signed by an authorized agent, he said. Did you meet the owner? No. Her daughter provided the power of attorney. Was the owner's occupancy discussed? I was told she had permanently entered memory care. Did you see medical documentation? That would not be my role. Fair. Did you speak to her? No. He unlocked the door. The air smelled of paint. The living room had been staged. Mom's sofa, family photographs, crocheted blankets, plants, and lamp were gone. The dining room was empty except for a glass table rented by the staging company. Where are her belongings? I asked. I was told the family had placed them in storage. Which facility? I don't know. He pulled out his phone and canceled the listing in front of me pending proof of authority and owner consent. He also sent a notice to his broker. Celia called before I reached the kitchen. What did you say to Jordan? The truth. You are interfering with a lawful sale. Mom says she never authorized it. She signed the power of attorney. A power of attorney is not permission to ignore the person who gave it. You are not a lawyer. No. I'm her son and I know the difference between interpretation and substitution. She lowered her voice. The house needs $40,000 in work. The plumbing is failing. The electrical panel is dangerous. The lower unit is empty. Mom cannot afford to keep it. I looked through the kitchen doorway. The old stove had been removed. A new one sat in its place with a bright warranty sticker. The lower unit has not been empty, I said. Silence. I had seen curtains in its windows every Sunday until the month before Mom's move. A young couple named Ben and Lila had lived there with a baby. They moved, Celia said. When? Recently. How much rent did they pay? That is none of your business. It is Mom's business. You have no idea what I've spent taking care of her. Then show me. She ended the call. The cedar box was gone from Mom's bedroom. So were her jewelry case, passport, marriage certificate, and red ledger. But the sewing table remained. I used the brass key anyway. The key did not fit the table drawer. It fit a small built-in cabinet behind the closet door, one our father had made, and painted the same color as the wall. Inside were 3 folders, a bank passbook from years ago, and photocopies of the red ledger's most recent pages. Mom had anticipated the possibility that the original would disappear. At the bottom was a note in Spanish. Elias, if Celia says I gave her the house, ask her why she needed me to sign papers I could not read. Do not fight with her. Bring someone who will listen to my words exactly. Mom had dated the note 6 weeks earlier. I sat on the floor of her empty closet and read it twice. Then I called Priya. My third decision was no longer whether to investigate. It was how to investigate without turning my mother into a prize 2 angry children were fighting over. Priya helped Mom request her own Meadow Glen admission file. She did not hand records to me. She gave them to Mom through the facility's normal process, and Mom asked me to sit beside her while we reviewed them with the video interpreter. That distinction mattered. Every page carried the same pattern. Patient declined, interpreter. Family translated. Daughter reports progressive memory loss. On one intake form, someone had checked a box stating that Mom could not identify the year. Beside it, a handwritten note described her as unable to name her medications. The date was a Thursday. I knew where Mom had been that Thursday because I had taken her to lunch after her dental appointment. She had complained that her soup cost $3 more than it did the previous month, reminded me that my car registration was due, and recited the names and doses of both her prescriptions when I asked whether the pharmacy had corrected its mistake. Memory can fluctuate. I knew that. A good morning does not disprove a bad afternoon. But the chart did not describe fluctuation. It described a woman who was steadily disappearing. The clinic records arrived 2 days later. Mom authorized Priya and me to review them. A qualified interpreter joined us again. The physician had not diagnosed dementia. He had recommended a home safety evaluation after Celia reported several incidents. He had written, consider short-term respite if family caregiver requires relief. Short-term respite. Not permanent memory care. Not sale of the house. Not removal of Mom's phone. A cognitive screening had been performed in English by a medical assistant. The score looked low enough to raise concern, but the notes acknowledged that Spanish was Mom's preferred language. No interpreter had been documented. When a fresh evaluation was scheduled with a bilingual clinician, Celia tried to cancel it. She told the clinic Mom was too tired. Priya rescheduled it with Mom directly. I did not attend the testing. Neither did Celia. That was important. Mom deserved an assessment, not an audience. The clinician later explained the result to Mom through a separate interpreter. She had mild age-related memory changes and anxiety, but she understood her property, her family, her income, and the consequences of major decisions. She could make her own choices. Celia's strongest defense had always been that she acted because Mom no longer could. That defense had started to crack. It did not disappear entirely. A capable person can still be pressured. A valid power of attorney can still exist. A family caregiver can make mistakes without committing fraud. I needed to understand what Celia believed she had permission to do. The photocopied ledger pages gave us the next layer. Mom's Social Security and pension deposits were consistent. Her ordinary expenses were modest. Yet beginning 14 months earlier, withdrawals marked home care appeared twice a month. Each was for $900. Mom had written question marks beside 6 of them. On another page, she had written, "Celia says this pays helpers. Which helpers?" I asked whether anyone besides Celia had provided regular care. "A woman named Marta came twice," Mom said. "She cleaned the bathroom and changed the sheets." 2 visits. Yes, the withdrawals totaled more than $25,000. I did not call the police. I did not accuse Celia in a family group chat. I did not drive to her house and demand the money. I called the bank with Mom sitting beside me. After verifying her identity, the representative explained that the payments had gone to an account for a small caregiving company. Mom asked for copies of the authorizations and the account statements. The representative placed a temporary restriction on new transfers at Mom's request and referred the matter for an internal fraud review. The company name was Golden Years Home Support. Its mailing address was a private mailbox. Its registered manager was Celia Navarro. When I showed Mom, she closed her eyes. "She told me insurance required a company," she said. "Did she tell you she owned it?" "No." Celia had created the company after Mom's hip surgery. She had used it to pay herself for caregiving. Paying a family caregiver is not automatically wrong. Caregiving costs time, gasoline, sleep, and income. If Celia had sat at Mom's table, explained a fair rate, and written down the agreement, I might have defended her. She had done none of that. The forms authorizing the transfers were in English. The signature looked like Mom's, but the date on the first agreement was the day after her surgery, when hospital medication records showed she was still receiving strong pain relief. The bank did not declare the signature false. It said it would investigate. I asked Mom whether she remembered signing it. "I remember Celia putting papers on the tray," she said. She said they were for the nurse. The deeper wound was not the amount. It was that Celia had built a business out of our mother's dependence and hidden the price from the person paying it. There was more. The couple from the lower unit, Ben and Lila, had not simply moved. Mrs. Hanley still had Lila's number. Mom gave me permission to contact them about rent paid on her property. Lila sounded nervous. "We paid Celia," she said. "She told us Mrs. Navarro wanted cash because of taxes." "How much?" $1,400 a month. "For how long?" "Almost a year." Mom's ledger recorded no rent deposits during that period. Lila had receipts. Celia had signed each one. The plumbing emergency was also exaggerated. I hired a licensed inspector paid from my own account and made sure Jordan Lee could attend so no one could claim I had hidden the condition. The inspector found ordinary deferred maintenance. The upstairs bathroom needed repair. 2 old valves should be replaced. The electrical panel was dated but functioning. The cost was nowhere near $40,000. The new stove carried a warranty registration in Celia's name. The old stove had not been dangerous. The control knob had cracked. A $40 part could have fixed it. Celia had replaced it, reported the broken knob as evidence that Mom left a burner on, and used the story in the care file. That was the third clue. The household dangers were not invented from nothing. They were ordinary problems with their meanings changed. A broken knob became memory loss. A wet floor became an unexplained fall. A walk to church became wandering. A request for temporary help became consent to permanent removal. Celia had not needed a grand lie. She had only needed to rename small truths until they formed the picture she wanted. We found Mom's belongings at a storage facility after a bill arrived in the stack of mail held by the post office. Mom authorized me to retrieve the unit key from Meadow Glen's property envelope. The dining table stood on its side under a blanket. The family photographs were packed face down. Her clothes filled 6 plastic bins. The cedar box sat behind a stack of chairs. The red ledger was missing. So were the original power of attorney papers. Mom touched the scarred edge of the table. "Your father repaired this corner after you stood on it," she said. "I was 6. You knew better." "I was 6. You still knew." "For the first time since I found the lockbox," she laughed. "We arranged to move only the personal things she wanted to. My house, clothes, photographs, medication records, the blue sugar bowl, and her own pillow. The table stayed in storage until the duplex was ready. Mom did not return to Meadow Glen after the evaluation. With her physician's approval and a written discharge plan, she moved into my downstairs guest room. I installed grab bars. Priya helped us interview licensed home care providers. Mom chose a woman named Elena for weekday mornings and insisted on paying her directly from an account Celia could not access. I did not choose for her. That was the lesson I kept having to relearn. Protection can become another form of control if the protected person is never allowed to decide. Celia came to my house the evening Mom moved in. She stood on the porch with tears in her eyes and a folder against her chest. "You kidnapped her from care." Mom discharged herself with her doctor's approval. "You coached her." The evaluator met her alone. "She has always favored you." From inside the house, Mom called, "I can hear you." Celia flinched. I opened the door wider but did not invite her in. "What's in the folder?" I asked. Proof that I did everything for her. Receipts, appointments, groceries, hours I missed at work. "Good. Bring it to the care meeting on Tuesday." Her eyes narrowed. "What care meeting?" "The one Meadow Glen scheduled to close the disputed admission and review the discharge." Priya invited everyone involved. "I'm not attending an ambush. It will have an interpreter." "Mom will speak for herself." "That is an ambush." She lowered her voice. "You think I wanted this?" My shop failed. Daniel left. I was taking care of Mom every day while you came over with pastries and played dominoes. She called me for every ache, every bill, every ride. I lost clients because I sat in waiting rooms with her. You gotta be the good son because I did the ugly work. There it was. Not innocence, not quite remorse. The grievance beneath the scheme. Some of it was real. "I should have done more," I said. She seemed startled. "I should have asked what the work was costing you. I should have shown up on Tuesdays, not only Sundays." I let gratitude replace oversight. Her grip loosened on the folder. Then I said, "But exhaustion did not give you ownership of her voice." Her face hardened again. "You have no idea what she promised me." "Then bring the promise." "I have the power of attorney." "Bring that too." She signed it. "Then the interpreter will have no trouble explaining what it says." Celia stepped backward. "You're enjoying this." "No, that was the truth. Victory would have been easier if I hated her. But I remembered a girl who slept on the floor beside my bed during thunderstorms. I remembered the woman who held Laura's hand through the last night of her life. I remembered Celia bringing soup after my surgery and arguing with the nurse until I received the right discharge instructions. People want betrayal to erase love because it makes judgment simpler. It does not. Love remained. Trust did not. Celia left the folder on the porch. Inside were grocery receipts, mileage notes, pharmacy copays, and a handwritten calendar of appointments. Some claims were fair, others were duplicated. Several hours overlapped with days she had billed Golden Years home support while Mom was with me. At the bottom was a copy of the power of attorney. It had been signed 7 months earlier. The notary line was valid. The witness was Celia's friend, who had replaced the stove. Attached to the document was a 1-page acknowledgement stating that Mom had reviewed the powers granted and understood them. It was written only in English. Beside Mom's signature, someone had written, "Translation provided by daughter." Celia had interpreted the document that gave Celia authority. Any professional interpreter would have recognized the conflict immediately. My sister had counted on nobody else noticing. The care meeting took place in Meadow Glen's conference room. The room had no raised bench, no jury box, and no polished wood meant to make anyone feel small. There was an oval table, a pitcher of water, a tissue box, and a television screen mounted on the wall. That made it the right room. Mom sat beside the independent interpreter. I sat across from her. Priya was there with Meadow Glen's administrator and the bilingual clinician who had evaluated Mom. Jordan Lee attended by video because his brokerage needed a clear record of the disputed listing. A representative from Mom's bank joined by phone for the portion Mom had authorized. Celia arrived last. She stopped when she saw the interpreter. Then she noticed the empty chair beside Mom. "Where's the attorney?" she asked. "There isn't one," Priya said. "This is a care and consent review." Celia placed her folder on the table. "You involved the bank and a real estate broker in a medical meeting." Mom answered before anyone else could. "I invited them." The interpreter repeated her words in English. Celia sat. Priya explained the purpose. Meadow Glen needed to close the admission record accurately. Mom wanted to state her wishes regarding housing and care. The bank needed to verify whether she authorized the disputed transfers. Jordan's brokerage needed to know whether she had approved the property listing. No one was there to arrest Celia. No one promised an instant judgment. There would be separate reviews afterward. That seemed to make Celia bolder. She opened with her strongest defense. "I acted under a valid power of attorney because my mother was declining and the house had become unsafe. Every dollar I received was compensation for care I actually provided. Elias has appeared at the end after years of doing almost nothing and manipulated her because he wants control of the property." It was a plausible story. Parts of it were even true. Priya turned to Mom. Through the interpreter, Mom described her hip surgery, the temporary help she needed, the papers Celia brought to the hospital, the move she had been told would last only until repairs were finished, and the home sale she had never approved. Celia shook her head. She forgets the conversations that do not suit her. The clinician spoke next. "Mrs. Navarro has mild memory changes. My assessment did not find that she lacks the ability to understand her living arrangements, finances, or property decisions." "You met her once," Celia said. "Twice. You didn't see her at home." "No, that is why the reported incidents matter." Celia leaned back as though she had reached safe ground. The stove, the fall, the medication, wandering. I placed 4 ordinary objects on the table: a cracked plastic stove knob, a photograph of a detergent bottle lying beside the laundry sink, the pharmacy's correction notice for the mislabeled prescription, a church bulletin with Mom's handwritten note thanking Mrs. Hanley for walking home with her. Celia stared at them. I did not accuse her of inventing the incidents. I explained what each one had originally been. The stove had a mechanical defect. The fall followed spilled soap. The medication concern began with a pharmacy error. The wandering was a familiar trip to church. Earlier clues changed meaning in that room. Celia tried to recover. Those things still prove she needed supervision. Some help, Mom said. Not disappearance. The interpreter's voice filled the silence. Jordan asked Mom one direct question. Did you ask your daughter to list the duplex? No. Did you intend to move permanently into memory care? No. He confirmed that the listing would remain canceled and that his brokerage would retain the file for its compliance review. The bank representative reviewed the transfers to Golden Year's home support. Celia said Mom had agreed to pay her. Mom said she agreed to reimburse expenses and discuss wages after recovery. She had never been told Celia owned the company or that automatic transfers would continue. Then the representative asked whether Mom wanted Celia to retain access to her accounts. No, Mom said. The representative confirmed that the temporary restriction would remain while the bank completed its review and that future access would require Mom's direct authorization. Celia's hand moved toward the copy of the power of attorney. This document says I can manage the accounts and property. Mom turned to the interpreter. Please read the part above my signature. The interpreter read the English acknowledgement, then rendered it in Spanish. Mom listened without interruption. When the interpreter finished, Mom said, "I have never heard those words before." Celia's strongest excuse failed in one sentence. She said she had translated the document at the hospital. Mom asked, "What did you tell me it was?" Celia said nothing. Mom answered for herself. "You told me it allowed you to speak to the insurance company and pick up medicine." The administrator looked down at the table. Priya did not. Celia turned to me. "You set this up." "No," I said. I stopped setting things up around her. Mom produced a document she had signed the previous day after meeting privately with an independent attorney and a qualified interpreter. It revoked Celia's authority. Notices had already been sent to the bank brokerage facility and other relevant offices. The power Celia believed she controlled had disappeared before she entered the room. She looked at Mom as though expecting rescue. "I gave up my business for you." Mom's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. "I would have paid you fairly. I deserved more than errands and groceries. Then you should have asked me. You would have said no. That was my right." Celia looked around the room, searching for someone who would call the process cruel. No one did. I slid her folder back across the table. "The legitimate expenses will be counted," I said. "The care you actually provided will be counted too. So will the rent, the transfers, and the sale you tried to arrange. You want to ruin me. I want every number returned to its real name." She looked at the interpreter, the cracked knob, the bank phone, and our mother sitting upright in the chair she had chosen. Then I said the one thing I had carried into that room. "You kept calling her confused because silence was easier to spend than consent." Celia closed her folder. For once, she had no answer prepared. The aftermath took months. The bank's review did not magically settle everything. Records were examined. Payments that could be supported as reasonable caregiving expenses were separated from transfers that had not been clearly authorized. Rental receipts were matched against Mom's accounts. Through formal mediation, Celia agreed to repay a substantial portion over time and surrendered any claim to manage the duplex. 1. The professional who had notarized the power of attorney acknowledgement faced a separate complaint about the circumstances. Meadow Glen corrected Mom's file. The clinic added language access safeguards to future consent appointments. No one went to jail. Celia's company closed. Her relationship with Mom remained broken but not declared dead. Mom returned to the yellow duplex after repairs grabbed bars, better lighting, and a stove with controls she could easily see. She chose to rent the lower unit through a licensed manager. That income paid for Elena's morning visits and a gardener who trimmed the rosemary exactly as Mom instructed. I began spending Tuesdays with her, not as an auditor, as a son. I drove her to appointments, but the interpreter spoke when she requested one. I organized statements, but she opened them. I learned that helping was not the same as taking over, and that guilt could make a man controlling if he dressed it up as protection. 6 months after the meeting, Celia mailed Mom a letter. Mom read it, folded it, and placed it inside the cedar box. "Will you answer?" I asked. "Not today." I did not ask again. On her 88th birthday, we brought the old dining table back from storage. The repaired corner still showed where I had stood on it at 6 years old. Mrs. Hanley came over. Elena brought flowers. Father Tom lost 3 games of dominoes and claimed the light was bad. Mom set the chipped blue sugar bowl in the center of the table. Then she pushed the dominoes toward me. "You start," she said. I chose a tile and waited. For the first time in years, nobody answered for her, moved her chair, hid her phone, renamed her choices, or translated her life into something more convenient. The first thing my mother reclaimed was not the house. It was her voice. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and tell me this: when does helping someone become controlling them?